All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to this Thursday TechCast, Analytics and Data TechCast. Couple of opening administrative kind of things. My name is Charlie Berger. I'll be your host for today's Analytics and Data TechCast, which will be immediately following this brief introduction and sort of what's going on here and the logistics and such. My background and relationship with the TechCast is I am associated with this both as from an Oracle point of view as a product manager for the Oracle Machine Learning, and also as a co-founder of this the BWA user community, which with the help of many hardworking volunteers, and we're always looking for more. So reach out to us if you want to join this gathering of volunteers that run these events. We run the Analytics and Data Summits, and we run the Analytics and Data TechCasts. We're going to have a great speaker today, Philippe Lions. He's the Senior Director of Product Management for the Oracle Analytics Cloud, and he's going to speak and then do a lot of demo about many of the advanced features of the Oracle Analytics Cloud that leverage processing inside the autonomous database. After that, we'll have a brief Q&A. We do our best to try and keep these things to about 30 minutes. We may run over a little bit because we have a lot of content here today and a great speaker. Again, just briefly introducing the speaker, Philippe Lions, Senior Director of Product Management for Oracle Analytics Cloud. He and his team of PMs have been supporting Oracle's BI functionality and customers for many years now, and he is a wealth of knowledge and technical expertise. So if you have questions along the way, you're not going to be able to sort of voice them through the audio. You're going to type them into the Q&A, which is at the bottom of the Zoom webinar application. So during this webinar, just if you have a question, type it in there. I will alert Philippe if we have any, or we'll just pick them up at the end. So try not to use the chat window. The chat window sometimes gets recorded or whatever. We want to really encourage you to use the Q&A window instead. So submit your questions there. The TechCast will be, or is being recorded, and it will be posted on the TechCast page. We'll show you that again at the very end, so you can see that. The speaker's contact information is in the presentation, which is being recorded, so you can follow up with Philippe directly if you want to. We will also post a PDF of the presentation on the Analytics and Data TechCast page, and we will shortly thereafter also, so the recording, the slides in PDF form will be out there, and we'll also be uploading this to YouTube, so you can find this presentation, this recording there. I always wanted to use this slot to recruit additional TechCast speakers. We're very delighted today to have Philippe, who has a wealth of expertise, but there are many customers who do amazing things, many partners, perhaps other Oracle people who they all have knowledge, expertise, they have tips and tricks to share, and we're encouraging all of these technical professionals to submit TechCast abstract proposals. If you go to the main page, you'll see where you click to submit something, and you can do that. We will work with you to find an appropriate slot to slot you on in, and you too can be delivering a TechCast. With that, without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Philippe. Let the TechCast begin. Thank you, Philippe. Yours.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thanks a lot for this introduction, Charlie, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. So my name is Philippe. So Charlie has introduced me as part of the product management group of OAC. So what I would like to use the next 20-25 minutes here for is to show you some capabilities of OAC that may not be well known, or that is at least very powerful for calling specific database functions directly from OAC. So in other words, function shipping, computation or calculations down in OAC. My team and I are working on this, and if you want to follow some of our work, you can follow me on Twitter. That's probably right now the best way to get some insights on examples and demos that we're delivering on this. So I only have one slide, which is this one, which is an overview of the sort of agenda of content I would like to use or demo to you. So this is quite a challenge to me because the demo better work throughout this session. I want to talk to you a little bit about what are the prerequisites to what you're going to see, so what you need to do on your system for this to work. And then I would like to go and show and demonstrate what I'm talking about with functions called, evaluate, and evaluate aggregates within OAC. And for this, I will use Oracle database on my side, but this is typically working with other major databases as well. So in other words, this is a syntax that allows you to push calculations functions down to any database as long as you're using it properly. And in the case of Oracle, I want to demonstrate how you use advanced SQL clauses. I want to show you how you can use predictive queries from Oracle using evaluate, text queries, but this also works with other custom functions that you may have defined in Oracle. I want to also say a word about limitations, what doesn't work today, and probably if we have time, a word about the roadmap on this. To me, this is pretty exciting because it can really help OAC deliver functional content on a massive and robust database. So let's, without further talking on here, let me go on demo. So this is an OAC environment, and let me go back to the home page. And let me just take a second on the prerequisites first. So the one thing that needs to be enabled on your machine, and that's just a few clicks away on OAC, to make sure that this demo will work for you, or not just a demo, but the feature, is to go and enable evaluate. So I went into console, from the home page into console, and this is the cloud, obviously OAC is the cloud version here. And within console, I'll go into the system settings block right there. That's where users can, or administrators can configure their environment. And here I'm going to look for evaluate. So here it is. There is a property that is called evaluate support level, which has to be set to 2. And by default, this is set to 0. So when you provision OAC, this may not work. So you just come here, set it to 2. And there, this is enabling several flavors of evaluate. And as far as we're concerned today, we'll talk about evaluate and evaluate aggregate. So once you're done with this, restart will highlight, you just have to restart. This is not a full pod restart. This is just a BI server restart. It's pretty quick. So once you have done this, you're ready to go. The only thing that you need is a data source that has a connection that is using a database connection. So in my case, I have a few data sources here, all the database ones that you see here. And let me start with this one, for instance. This is the data source that I have defined. Let me click on it to open it in a project. And the important thing is that this data source is not only a database connection, but if I go in the definition of the data source, okay, I will go to prepare. So now I'm in DV here, right? And I'm looking at the data source that is directly defined to a database. There's no repository here. The repository is a different discussion. I'll say a word about it towards the end. And in this direct data source, the definition of the data source connects to my ADW database. Sorry about that. And the important point is that the data access for this data source has to be live. In other words, OAC is not caching the data from the database. It's hitting it live. If this parameter is not set well, the function shipping, so the evaluate, will not be able to happen. So all I have said so far is make sure your environment accepts evaluate. That's the console fix we did. And second, make sure that your data sources that you're using are set to a live connection to the database, not a caching connection. Okay, so this is the case with my data source right there. And what is this data about? Very quickly, I'm going to get out of the data source definition, and I'm going to open a demo project. So I'll give it a second to refresh. This demo project is showing a little bit. So this data is ADW based, and it's about sales, and it has about 3.6 million rows, and it has sales, and it's a fact table that looks very much like the SH fact table. If you're familiar with it, it's just more rows. Okay, it's about 300 million, 400 million rows, $400 million of sales. Let's say in this case that we would be interested in doing a count distinct of, say, customer ID, right? So typically we would go and well, we can do a couple of things. We could set customer ID, so counting the number of customers, to be with an aggregation of count, so not an attribute, but a measure and an attribute and an aggregation of count distinct, or we can, let me turn this off. Sorry about this. Okay, all right, so sorry about this. So we can have a count distinct on the number of customers, or we can build a calculation like the one that I'm showing right now. So I'll give it a second to refresh on your screen. This is count distinct of customer ID, which is a calculation I've built. And we can call this in, let me open a new blank tab, and let me create the best visualization with count distinct. And this is counting about 400,000 customers. Let me take a second here, and let me just go in my sessions. Let me show you how I did this. I'm just going to copy the URL. I want to show you the SQL that was generated by this. So how do I see the SQL that was generated by this? I have opened a different tab on the same environment. These are two tabs on the same environment. I'm going to my console here, session and query cache. And session and query cache will show me the logs of my queries. And I'm going to sort this descending. And now you will see that I've just fired a query. I'll stop for a second. And I know it's small. Let me try to zoom a little bit. This is what we just did. And that's the log of that query. So we're going to open it. And in that log, if I scroll down at the bottom of this log, this here is the physical SQL that was sent by OAC to my ADW. And you can see that there is indeed a count distinct feature. Now, this is all fine, just as expected. But what if we had a very large amount of data? This count distinct could take a lot of time. And what if we wanted to break this down by dimensions, right? This could count a lot, this could run for a lot of time. So we have that's an opportunity for using that evaluate feature. There is a capability in the database that is called approximate count distinct. That's a syntax in Oracle database, okay? So I would like OAC to use this because approximate count distinct is a lot faster than count distinct, and it returns great values. So let me create a calculation, and I am not an admin. I am not using the repository. I am not dealing with the database, okay? Count, and I'm going to call, oh, actually, the metrics is already exist on this, so demo. And I'm going to say evaluate. That's the syntax that I wanted to show you today. Not evaluate script, but evaluate. And in evaluate, I need to know the syntax of the database function. So in this case, it's approx count distinct, if I remember right. So that requires an argument. I'm going to call that argument %1, and I'm just going to have this as a text here, approximate count distinct of %1, okay? And let's now give a value to that %1. %1 is the first argument after the comma right here. So that value will be, what do we want to count? Customer ID. Customer ID. Okay, so I'm hitting enter here. Approx counting syntax. Hopefully I have the syntax correct. And validate this. This validates and save that. So here's my approximate count distinct. And now I'm going to ask to create a best visualization with this metric. Let's see what's happened. Actually, it's an attribute, not a metric. And here's the result, 389,271. So it's not exactly the same because it's an approximation. What I want to show you is, let's go back in the SQL here. Go back in the list of sessions. And now here is our query that we just did. Hopefully you can read it. Let me zoom a little bit. Sorry for the way that the screen looks. This is our query. So let's see what is the physical SQL that was sent by OAC. View the log, and I'm going to scroll down all the way to the bottom. And here's the physical SQL that was sent by OAC. And that physical SQL has approximate count distinct. Approximate count distinct of something from this data, and that's just the customer ID. So it's really function shipping. The count and the crunching here is happening down in the database, and we see the result immediately. If I had billions of rows, like I have in the SH schema, for instance, this would be a lot faster than this. Now, what if, let me zoom out a little bit. What if we wanted to break this down and do analysis by, I don't know, channel ID, right? Let me bring channel ID here in my visualization. It breaks. The reason why it breaks is because now we would like to have approximate count distinct be aggregated in the physical SQL. There is a group by happening behind the scenes, group by channel ID. How do we resolve that? Well, okay, we're going, actually, let me open that metric. So I'm editing my calculation right there. Okay, so this is, let me zoom in again so you can see better. This is evaluate, which returns attribute information, non-aggregated information. For OAC to allow this to go with a group by clause, we need evaluate aggregate function. Exactly the same syntax, just adding AGGR. Validate that, save that. And here's the approximate count. Let me make it a little better. Let me just reformat this. So now we have the distinct count distincts for each channel ID. Could have been by product ID. We could have also added more matrices, like, for instance, amount sold. We can now use other visuals. And now we see the products by approximate count distinct and amount sold, and we can slice this by channel. I mean, then now it's just a metric like any other metric in OAC, but every dot in this diagram fires up an approximate count distinct behind the scenes. So the SQL obviously propagates this in the database. Now, if I remember, that chart, that number here is the original count distinct. In many cases, if I have too many data points in my data set, look, if I just came back to the original one and double click on channel ID, I would probably already run into an error because I have too much data. That's what the error is about. So here, approximate count distinct using evaluate is very useful for me. And that's just one example. I don't want to focus on approximate count distinct. I want to focus on, well, it was fairly easy for me to do this directly from my calculation. I can also do this from the prepare tab of the data. Let's pick a quick example here. What if we wanted to bin this? Let's say we want to bin the sales amount, okay, the amount sold. So if I have a function in OBIE or in OAC for doing this, which is binning. Unfortunately, in my case, so let me bin this. Let's try to do distribution, right? Binning, not tiling. This is tiling, and this is binning. Okay, so I'm going to go with equal weight, and I'm going to say, give me 10 bins of the sales amount for the data in this table. Add the step, and of course, I have to apply the change that I just did, and that's great. Now, this is great. This is a capability of OAC. The problem in my case is that when I bring this, let me open a new canvas and start fresh. When I use, so here's the bin that just appeared, right? That's what we just created. Okay, when I say, give me a chart with this, I run into an error. What is the error? The error is that, you have way too many rows in your table and you're asking me to do a live connection. I can't do much with this. It's too much. And my OAC has a small limit on purpose just so I could show the issue. So how can I work around this if I had a large, okay, now I need to zoom out to close that box. Sorry, it seems like I have a little bit of a browser problem. Okay, okay, let me open it again. Sorry about that. So I'm back to my binning issue. So here's the bin, right? So this is what was not working. So what we can do is we can just use evaluate and function ship here again in the prepare tab and evaluate binning function. So let me go to create another binning here. So I will create a new column And that new column will use a calculation from the database, which is with bucket. You may be familiar with this function. This is an Oracle database function. Again, I'm using Oracle database here. So I'm going to say evaluate, and this is the syntax. What? %1 is my column, and my column is going to be amount sold, right? So I'm going to just type it right there. I want to bin amount sold, and I want to bin it from a start of 0. So everything that's I'm going to guess that the amount of my sales, I know it, right? I'm not guessing it, but the amount of my sales is between 0 and 2,000, and I want 10 bins. So every bin is from 0 to 200, from 200 to 400, and so on. Okay. Go. Oh, I should have renamed this. Anyway, let me call it like this. It's new one, just for the sake of time. And I'm applying this script. And now we're done. And here is my new one column. I forgot one thing. This is a metric, as you can see from the diagram here. I'm going to make this be an attribute. So now I am binning all my rows, and there are 3 million rows. And let's see if this works. Let me select amount sold and my bin, new one, and see what we get. And here's our binning. Right, so now we're binning 3 million rows and we're returning the results. And of course, we can use this in OAC just like any other column. We can slice it and add more measures with it. Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to do. And do any sorts of analysis with it. It just behaves like any other attribute, but it's function shipping the with bucket down in the database, just as a matter of a check. I just want to be sure of what I'm telling you. I'm going back to my OAC log here. And here is my last query. Hopefully it is the right one. Descending, yes. Okay, yeah, well, I won't see it. I forgot that. I won't see it here because I have asked the system here to create the calculation in the prepare tab. So this is going to be upstream. It won't be logged in the log that I was having, but as you could see, it's obviously function shipping because it's too many rows for the OAC to proceed by itself. Okay, so now this is working as well for other type of SQLs in the database, like predictive queries, right? So let me, there's a variety of different SQLs in the database that are not natively used by OAC that can be used via evaluate. So I'm going to just pick one here. I think I have a data set about credit scoring. Okay, so that data set has various attributes, and it's just various attributes about people, about individuals and loan amounts, and then all sorts of measures that could be interesting in credit scoring. And what if we wanted to predict? I don't know. I'm gonna guess. Let's pick something simple. Let's predict age, and let's use the database capability with the predictive queries to do this. Predictive queries can run predictions without pre-training a model. And it's going to, the database will take care of doing everything that it needs behind the scenes. So I'm just going to do this prediction calculation. And here again, I'm going to use the syntax that exists in the database. And that syntax is a little specific. So I'm using, oops, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I don't have the right syntax here. Give me a second, evaluate. I'm just copying it from the right place. Sorry about that. Okay, evaluate. And then the syntax in the database is what is here within the brackets, within the quotes. Prediction, so prediction for a column using all the other attribute, all the other columns that I have in my query over nothing. So what is the column I want to predict? That %1 is the first attribute right there. Column I want to predict here is age. for example, and I want to use everything else that I'm using in my query, and that's this little star character. So let me save that. So what do I want in my query? What if I asked for, of course, customer ID, and then what about, I don't know, I'm just going to make this up, credit card usage, current address. Let me make this be a table. And now, should we try it? Should we try to push this down in the query and see what happens? So just with customer ID, address duration, and credit card utilization rate, what can OAC make up behind the scenes? So this is the prediction from the OAC, from the ADW predictive query on the age based on this information. If I showed you the SQL, you would see that there is a prediction and it's using star for these 3 columns. Let's bring something else. What if we bring like family size? Now let's watch it. Customer number 1 is 4425. Customer number 2 is 4430. Let's bring the family size here and see if that prediction changes. And hopefully it'll have, see, it just changed because the system here is using more information. So this is totally directly leveraging the ADW capabilities on this, on the predictive queries. This is not working yet with ML models, or at least we need to correct the exact syntax, to be honest. But we don't have a working example with calling a SQL that calls a specific predictive model. However, you can call a specific model using something else and evaluate. You can do this using a data source definition. So I can talk about this in a different TechCast. In the meantime, with evaluate, you can already do this. There are other things that can be done in evaluate. You can pass on, that's a last example I want to show you. We can pass on text SQLs as well. All right, so here's a simple one to be done as well. And I'm watching the clock here, so that's why I'm speeding up a little bit. I have a data set with some text field, which is complaints about car claims, okay? And there is a complaint description. And this is a text. Now, I want to filter only on complaints that have to do with, I don't know, the temperature, right? So there are, I mean, the OAC doesn't do this, right? So we can't filter on something that is about something. But the database can do this. There are text capabilities in the database that help doing this. So the syntax for this, so contains or about temperature. And I'm making up the topic here. So temperature is the word that we want to measure. And so the syntax is, does a column %1 contain some text? So the text here is temperature. And the column here is the description, right? So does my description, %1, first attribute here, first argument, contain something about temperature? Let me drag this here. And this is using the text index in the database. So 0 means it didn't find anything. And hopefully there are some that are not zeros. So let me actually rule out the zeros, exclude selection 0. And these are hopefully all the text that have to do with something about temperature. So let me try to find a small one. Here, right there. Execution failure. So this is call. See, probably it found out that call had to do something with temperature. So it kind of recognized that this is about. So time is about to stop. So let me just go back to my slide here. I wanted to take this minute to just show you that you can really leverage whatever is behind the scenes on your database, whether it's Oracle or any other database. You could call custom functions. What I've shown you is really scratching the surface. Obviously, in the case of the examples I've given you, you need something that returns row by row results. You cannot accommodate array results, so many functions are not possible to be used in evaluate. No windowing, and like I said, ML models use them as data source definitions. That's another topic. But I think it's really powerful, and it really helps you in OAC leverage the capabilities of ADW or any other database. We have a roadmap for this. I don't have time to talk about you right now, but it's quite exciting. Thanks a lot. Charles, I'll pass it on to you as we're at the top of the hour, or the hour.
Okay, great. Got a couple, 2 or 3 questions here. One person whom I know says, I've seen this get reset after a patch regarding your setting of 0, 1, or 2 or whatever for the evaluate function. Is that something people need to watch out for, or were you aware of that?
That's correct. The patch will probably require you to go back in the console and set it back to 2. As
okay.
You know, that,
all right.
Yeah.
Good heads up for people. I'm sure they'll be rectified and better in the future. But is there a relationship between the number of OCPUs provisioned and the volume of data that can be used in an OAC instance?
You can use any volume of data, but there is a relationship between OCPUs and the volume of data that can be retrieved by OAC from the database to compute stuff in OAC. So evaluate becomes useful when you hit that limit, because OAC is retrieving too much data, and I'm talking millions, right? So when OAC retrieves millions and does computation on it, then you probably either need to rebuild your query because you're fetching too much data, or maybe you're asking for something that OAC doesn't know how to do, and you should use evaluate to function chip it properly. But yes, the answer is yes, there is a relationship between OCPUs and the limit of data that you can fetch in OAC.
Okay, there's another question here. Hello, do the predictive queries also have the forecast syntax? I guess I can help you with that answer. No, I think that the forecasting functions with the exponential smoothing or RIMA modeling that we added in 18C is called not through the predictive queries sort of syntax that we did earlier on in the machine learning. It's done, which some of them we expose that way that Philippe was showing, but all of the algorithms, including now the time series of forecasting, are called via the traditional classic BND, BMS data mining, function classification, the time series or whatever. So it's the classic way of calling those that can also be done. And I think Philippe was alluding to the fact that maybe he'll come back and show that in the future. Maybe you can talk more to that, Philippe, on what's going on there.
On the data set definition, well, we have quite a roadmap for better leveraging the OML or the machine learning sequels from ADW directly from within OAC. And
the question is, Philippe, the question is also, could they do that today? Could they call the forecasting today? And the answer, I think, is yes, right?
Yes, today you can call the forecasting just within a half an hour. I couldn't show you this because I'm focusing on evaluate, which is one way of doing things. It doesn't allow you to do the forecasting function in evaluate, or at least not correctly. It works, but it doesn't return the right results. The right way of doing it is to use this in defining a data source in DV. So when you define a data source in DV, I'll take just a second to show that, but when you define a data source in DV, you can define it as a SQL, and that SQL can call in the forecast function, not just only the forecast, any function, even the model function or whatever.
And in the Oracle Autonomous Database and the Oracle Machine Learning Notebooks, there's a bunch of example notebooks. I've just updated those. They'll be coming out as the updated version of the examples, which has a very nice time series, just calling the traditional, SQL machine learning functions in the database. There's an example there you can also look at. One more question here. Can any other BI tool do that with ADW?
Not to my knowledge in the way of the flexibility that you have with OAC, where the user can, assuming he is familiar with the syntax, he can do this in a very flexible way. And I don't know that this is possible. Now, there's a bunch of, I am not speaking about a repository here and what you can define in an OAC repository. I'm not speaking about what you can define in a data model, which comes on top of this. I'm just zooming on this feature that enables a designer, as an end user, an analyst, to directly call a function from the database. That, I don't know that it is at least that flexible in other competitor tools.
Okay. I think that's it for questions and for time. Did you want to show one last thing to follow up on that other one before we wrap it up?
Just to answer that question, so when you define a data source in a database, you either select the table and the columns, or you enter a SQL. So here I'm selecting a table, or the alternative is to define this as a SQL, right? So in that SQL defines the data source, and that SQL is almost like a view, if you wish, can have any of the forecast functions that you were mentioning. Maybe we'll have time to show this in a different TechCast.
Yeah, well, we'll have to ask for Philippe to come back and show us some more. With that, I think I will thank Philippe for a great presentation and 99% demo. We really thank him for that, because that's the goal of these things. And if he's going to do what I think he's going to do, he's going to go to this slide that's the page on the TechCast that shows where you can follow up and see this. There we go. So the next TechCast, thank you. The next TechCast is going to be on October 3rd. We're going to take a brief hiatus while we all go off the Oracle world and run around crazy for a week. But when we come back, we're going to talk, we've got Carol Palmer and David Lapp, two most excellent product managers from the Spatial and Graph team, are going to come in and talk about Oracle Spatial Studio, fast and easy spatial analytics and maps. And the tagline is, want to learn how to easily create interactive maps and perform spatial analysis on your data? In this session, we'll cover Spatial Studio, blah, blah, blah. So it's another really cool one. After that, we have another that's kind of a hybrid, a little bit like what Philippe was showing here, from Harry Snart, who's going to talk about doing production machine learning using a combination of sort of prototyping things out with the machine learning in Oracle Analytics Cloud, and then kind of shifting gears and kind of doing the production version and deployment of that using REST services, using the machine learning inside the database. So I, of course, like that one quite a bit. And as we always do, we'd like to encourage you, the audience, mostly customers, partners, people who are, have skill sets that know how to do clever, cool things that maybe they can share that with others. Last time we had Shankar give a great talk about some cool things in market basket analysis. So take a look at the past TechCasts. If you can scroll down just a little bit, Philippe. These are the kind of examples we've done in the past. If you're thinking, should I submit a TechCast? The answer is take a look at these and think about it, and please do. We have a team of us volunteers to judge these things and try to pull out the best and bring them to you, the audience, so you can see these things. We do record these, and so within a day or two at most, we'll have these posted out here as the video replay, and we'll also get Philippe's slides. They'll be posted there as well. And if you want to submit a TechCast, can you scroll up just a little bit, Philippe? There's a button on there that says Submit a TechCast, somewhere just above this maybe. And so there it is, Submit a TechCast. So if you've got something to share, or you know somebody that is really good and you'd like to get them on stage and share something, please have you or them click there. With that, I think we'll close it out. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, everyone. And watch for the recordings. I'm going to stop recording and end it now. Thank you. Philippe, you want to say goodbye?
Thank you very much, and goodbye, everyone.
All right. Thank you.